It was a warm spring afternoon in Texas, with just enough breeze to keep the sun from becoming a burden. I stood at the edge of the vineyard, heels sinking slightly into the soft earth beneath me. The setup was perfect, wooden chairs wrapped in white tulle, wildflowers spilling from mason jars, tables lined with flickering candles waiting for sunset. From the outside, it looked like a dream, my dream, but inside it felt more like I was holding my breath underwater. They say every bride glows on her wedding day. I didn't glow, I braced. I was the youngest of 3 girls, and that role came with its weight. My sisters, polished and loud, had always been the stars. My mother floated through the morning like a guest, too preoccupied with the floral arrangements to look me in the eye. My father? He stood silent in the corner, nursing a whiskey and barely glancing in my direction. This was my wedding, but I felt like I was attending someone else's event. And then there was Joanne. From the moment she arrived, she was on. Walking like the matriarch of some southern dynasty, chin high, pearls tight around her throat, eyes scanning everything and everyone. She'd always had a way of making me feel small, and today it was like she had sharpened her claws just for me. "Oh, sweetie," she said, eyeing my dress with that tight-lipped smile. "That must have taken a whole bolt of fabric." I chuckled awkwardly. "Well, I wanted to be comfortable." She leaned in closer, voice low. "Comfortable, sure, but careful, those photos last forever." I looked away, pretending not to hear the snickers from the other women she huddled with. I could see her pointing once right at my stomach. She mouthed something. They laughed. My face burned. I turned to my husband, to Mark, who adjusted his cufflinks and smiled at the guests arriving. He hadn't heard? Or maybe he had and chose not to. That had become a pattern, I noticed, but hadn't named yet. During the ceremony, I tried to hold on to something real. The vows, his hands in mine, the trembling in my knees, that had nothing to do with love. The crowd cheered, we kissed, it was done. The reception should have been a release, a celebration. But Joanne had saved her best act for last. The music dimmed, glasses clinked. She stood lifting her champagne flute. "I'd like to say a few words," she said, raising her voice just enough to command silence. Mark and I hadn't planned speeches from the parents. This wasn't in the schedule. She turned toward me, a smile curling unnaturally at the corners of her mouth. "Well," she began, "I think we can all agree the wedding was beautiful. And Madeline, darling, you look radiant." I nodded, unsure. She paused, "And judging by the cake size, I guess we know where it's all going tonight." Laughter. Not much, just enough. Enough to freeze me in place. My heart kicked against my ribs. My eyes scanned the room. Some guests laughed nervously. Others looked down at their plates. "Mark?" He chuckled, lightly, as if brushing it off. I smiled. I don't know how. My mouth moved, but it felt like a mask glued to my face. This wasn't the first time Joanne had done this, but this was the first time it felt like the floor gave way underneath me. I stared at my glass, the bubbles rising, popping, gone. Later, while people danced and the music tried to erase what had happened, I sat still. I let my memories do what they always did, play reels of every little moment Joanne had cut me with words dressed as compliments. "Brave choice of dress. You're such a hearty eater." Mark always did like girls with curves. It had been years, holidays, birthdays, every gathering had its sting. And today it boiled over. I looked at Mark, still smiling, still dancing, still not seeing me. I didn't feel like a wife. I felt like an exhibit, something put on display, judged, tolerated. "You married up," she'd said once. I remembered that too. Maybe I had. But what did he marry? As I sat alone, swirling what was left, in my glass, Roger walked over, Joanne's husband, the quiet one. He sat beside me, didn't say anything for a moment. Then leaned in. "That wasn't right," he said. I blinked. "Sorry?" "What she said, that wasn't right. Are you okay?" I looked at him, really looked, and I saw it, kindness, something I hadn't expected, something almost fatherly. "I'm fine," I said. He nodded, then stood. As he turned to leave, I watched him approach a man I hadn't noticed before, older, sharp suit. They shook hands. You still looking to sell? The man asked. Roger looked back at me for a beat. Maybe. I didn't understand the exchange, not then, but I wouldn't forget it either. As the night wore on, I walked away from the crowd. The laughter, the clinking, the music, it all faded behind me. I wandered to the edge of the vineyard. The hem of my dress grazed the dirt, streaked with wine. My makeup smeared slightly, but I didn't wipe it. I looked up at the sky, clear, quiet. I'll remember this day, I whispered, but not for the reason they think. I stood there a moment longer, alone, feeling something shift inside me. Something changed in me tonight, I thought. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not peaceful, not soft, just empty. The kind of quiet that hums with everything unsaid. Light filtered through the sheer curtains, stretching long lines across the white sheets. The clock on the side table read 6:45 a.m. I reached out instinctively, but the bed beside me was already cold. There was a note on the pillow. Went for breakfast with Mom. Be back soon. I stared at the handwriting for a long moment. Neat, effortless, like he didn't know or chose not to know how much weight that line carried. Breakfast with the woman who publicly mocked me 12 hours ago. Of course he would. My stomach tightened, echoing that moment again. Joanne's voice, that cruel smirk, the stifled chuckles. I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't return, only that dull ache behind my ribs. I got up, pulled on a robe, and let the door shut quietly behind me. The vineyard had changed overnight. Gone were the lights and laughter. Now it was tables half dismantled, petals crushed into the dirt, chairs tipped at awkward angles. A ghost town of celebration. The staff moved quietly, sweeping away the remnants of someone else's dream. I walked past the reception area and paused where I'd been sitting last night. My champagne glass still sat on the table, half full, smudged lipstick on the rim. A piece of my dress, the hem that tore as I left in a daze, lay crumpled on the gravel. I bent to pick it up, ran my fingers across the jagged tear. It wasn't just the fabric that felt ripped. Hey, a soft voice said behind me. I turned to see Mina, one of my bridesmaids. Her hair was still pinned from the night before, eyes red like she hadn't slept. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she said. For laughing, it wasn't funny, it just caught me off guard. I nodded slowly. Thanks. She stepped closer. A lot of people didn't know what to do. Some were just shocked. My mom actually told Joanne it was inappropriate. That was news to me. For a moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't crazy. People had noticed. We talked for a minute longer. About the awkward looks, the nervous glances, but I could tell she didn't want to dwell. She offered a quick hug and headed off. As I stood there alone again, I noticed Roger sitting near the pergola, legs crossed, a tablet in hand. He looked up and saw me. Coffee? He called, lifting a second cup. I hesitated, then walked over. We sat in silence for a bit. The sun was still low, casting gold across the hills. Roger handed me the cup. His fingers gentle, his eyes soft but unreadable. How you holding up? He asked. I sipped the coffee. Tired, he nodded. Joanne crossed the line last night. I should have said something. That's on me. I blinked. The honesty hit harder than I expected. I didn't expect anyone in your family to notice, I said. I notice a lot more than people think, he said, smiling without warmth. It was the first time I felt like someone saw me, really saw me. But as he reached into his notebook to check something, a business card slipped out. I caught the name as he tucked it back quickly. Chase Harrow. It clicked. That name, I'd heard it last night when Roger was talking to the stranger in the suit. The handshake, the quiet exchange. You still looking to sell? I didn't ask. He didn't offer. But I saw something flicker in his expression. A shift, like he knew I noticed but wasn't ready to talk about it. I might not be at the company much longer, he said quietly, almost to himself. There was no bitterness in his voice, just resignation, maybe even relief. We sat for another minute, watching the staff take down what was left of the decorations. He said something about the vines needing pruning soon. I nodded, only half hearing. My mind had already moved, not just to what happened, but why. Joanne's power in that family wasn't just her voice. It was how everyone reacted to her or didn't. Mark followed. Roger disappeared into silence. The rest stayed quiet, loyal to some invisible hierarchy. But Roger, he watched. He didn't fight, but he wasn't blind, and that made him dangerous or useful, depending on how I chose to look at it. My father used to say, "Still water runs deep." I never really understood it until now. Back in the suite, I opened my phone. The family group chat buzzed with photos from the wedding, smiling faces, dancing, blurred lights. Then I saw it. A photo. Me caught mid-reaction to Joanne's toast. Mouth open, eyes wide, my face twisted, trying to hide the hurt. Joanne had captioned it. Such a memorable moment. I stared at it. For a beat, my thumb hovered over the delete icon, but I didn't delete it. I screenshotted it instead, saved it, a quiet reminder. Next time, the joke won't be on me. I slipped into the now empty bridal suite. The late morning light filtered through sheer curtains, laying soft lines across the worn rug. My dress hung limp on a hanger, its tears, smudged makeup stains, and broken lipstick on the vanity told the story of last night's unraveling. I crouched by my shoes, picking at a scuff, listening for footsteps that had all but vanished. I walked toward the door of the coordinator's office, which was cracked open just enough to let muffled voices seep through. Heart pounding, I paused in the hallway. Through the gap, I made out fragments. Camera, delete. Not good if she sees this. I held my breath, toes gripping the carpet's edge. Had I walked into something they didn't want me to see? More frightening, did they already know I was watching? Inside the office, I found it empty. The desk was cleared, but a USB drive caught my eye, one labeled Wedding Edits. I scrambled for it, hands steady despite the tremor in my chest. Plugging it into my phone, I opened a folder of raw files. One footage clipped straight to my face, mid-reaction to Joanne's toast. My cheeks twinged, but deeper. Another file bore the title, Roger and Gus Meeting June 7th. My breath caught. Joni wasn't the only player. Roger was tangled in this too. I duplicated the files, hiding them behind benign documents. The click of shoes startled me. I pushed the flash drive in my pocket and dropped a pile of planners. I looked up. Lauren, the wedding coordinator, stood in the doorway. "Funny I found this in your drawer," I said, keeping my voice calm. She flinched. "I clean up things," she answered, voice clipped. I took a breath. "When I pulled up footage of Roger and Gus meeting, do you think I don't see patterns?" Her eyes flickered. She looked away, then slammed the door behind me. I walked out, pulse roaring in my ears. Confident I rattled her more than she rattled me. Next, I made my way to the study. Roger was bent over ledgers, furrowed brow deep in numbers. I closed the door softly behind me. "Roger," I said quietly. He startled, looked up. I slid Chase Harrow's name across the desk. His eyes narrowed. Small tremors in his fingers betrayed the calm he tried to wear. "If you didn't want me involved, don't hide from me now," I said. He said nothing, just looked at me. I left him there. Back in the bridal suite, I stared at the screen on my phone. The raw footage stared back, waiting. I hovered over send, but something held me back. Control mattered more than haste. A soft knock echoed through the room. I walked to the door and opened it. There she was, Joanne. Her lips curved into a polite smile, but her eyes were steel. In her hand was a USB drive. The same, she stepped into the room. "You don't deserve to see what's on this," she whispered. I walked through the front doors with Mark, the echo of last night trailing us like unwanted guests. The foyer felt different, staff moving in muted lines, faces turned away, and somewhere behind a corner, the hum of a television slideshow playing. I stopped dead when I saw her. Joanne, wearing the necklace I once gave her, standing amidst the half-cleaned decorations. The chain gleamed around her neck like a crown she stole. My throat constricted. That necklace was more than jewelry. It was a promise I had given in trust. Now she wore it like armor. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting mine. I forced a greeting. Mark hovered, silent, unsure which side he belonged to. Betrayal stung more when wrapped in gratitude. "May I see that necklace?" I asked, voice low. She held the pendant lightly. "It's a family gift," she said. Her smile was tight. "Meaningful sentiment." Her eyes flicked to nearby guests. I pressed. "It was mine, the one I gave you." Her expression wavered. She just said, "This means something else now." Someone in the crowd gasped. Conversation stuttered. I swallowed. The tension had broken. Later, in the living room, a friend complimented Joanne. "You look absolutely stunning today." She responded, venom laced in charm. "Glad someone sees beauty here." Then, with a laugh too loud, she turned to me. "You gave a sweet toast last night. Shame it was cut short." A ripple passed through the guests. Some laughed nervously, others glared. My face burned, anger pooled in my belly. I slipped away upstairs. In my room, I pulled the hidden USB from my pocket and stared at it. This was my ammunition. She wanted to humiliate me privately. Fine, I would bring sunlight to her darkness. I scribbled a plan: gather allies, expose truth publicly, force reaction. I recalled every slight, every cold comment that had masked itself as advice. I found strength not in vengeance, but in revelation. A knock came. Joanne's knock. My heart jolted. Before I could steady myself, she stood in the doorway. No greeting, just that USB in her palm, the same drive I had hidden. Her eyes measured, unreadable. "You think you can dig up dirt and it won't dirty you?" she whispered. The next morning, I woke before the house did. The curtains in the reading room were still drawn. Sunlight, only a thin stripe against the carpet. I sat with my knees pulled up, mug cooling between my hands. The slideshow from last night played back in my head, the still image of me frozen, mouth half open under her comment. "Am I overreacting?" I whispered to the empty shelves. The answer came as a quiet ache in my chest. No, I'd just been silent for too long. Every woman in my family had chosen to keep peace by swallowing her pride. I could still see my grandmother's bent shoulders at every holiday table. "I won't pass this on," I said to no one. The words steadied me. I reached for my phone and texted Mina. "Did you see the group chat?" Her reply came fast. "Yes, people were shocked. I'm sorry." I asked her to send me screenshots, just in case. She didn't hesitate. Another message popped up from a cousin on Mark's side. "You didn't deserve that." I stared at the screen, blinking. Not everyone was against me. Some just didn't know how to speak. Quietly, I wrote their names in my journal under the heading, "Who's Real?" The list was short, but it was a start. Later, I stepped into the garden. Joanne was there, pruning roses like she owned the earth. I stopped a few feet away, the smell of cut stems between us. "This ends now," I said. She didn't look up. "Ends what?" Her voice was light, like a bird. I kept mine level. The constant humiliation, the little daggers, the power games. Her hand paused on the shears. The smile she'd worn so easily yesterday faltered. "You don't have to like me," I continued, "but the next time you come for me in public, I'll return the favor. With interest." She set the shears down slowly. She didn't smile again. I walked to a bench under a tree and sat. My hands trembled. Tears came, not out of grief, but pressure breaking loose. "It's not fair that I have to do this on my honeymoon," I whispered. I remembered something a therapist once told me. Sometimes peace comes after the war, not before. Pulling out my journal, I wrote, "Today I stood still and didn't shake. It felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I realized then I didn't need to win her over. I just needed to win myself back." That evening, Mark came into our room carrying a mug of tea. He set it down gently. "Mum said you two talked," he murmured. "She didn't say much, but I've never seen her speechless before." I didn't gloat. "I needed her to hear me, that's all." He shifted his weight. "I should have said something that night," he admitted. "Yes," I said softly, "you should have." He didn't flinch. "But I still can," he added after a moment. For the first time since the wedding, he didn't turn away from accountability. Later, my phone pinged, a new email. Subject: "You need to know what happened before the wedding." No sender name. My heart beat faster. Attached was a video file titled "Planning Call May 3rd. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the play button. Then I tapped. I called Mina, Marisol, and 2 cousins I trusted. "Meet me in the hall," I'd texted. In minutes, they slipped into the grand entryway, quiet and serious, bridesmaids, old friends, those who'd seen the edge in my eyes. I laid the USB drive, the raw footage, contract drafts across a small table. Some of them hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. I looked at them each in turn. "We won't let her rewrite history," I said softly but firmly. They nodded. That moment moved something in me. I wasn't alone. I requested use of the main ballroom before dinner. Guests drifted in, some curious, some cautious. Joanne, Mark, Roger, they all hovered at the edges. I cleared the room, placed the laptop and remote in front of me. My heart raced. "Tonight I will show you something you were never supposed to see," I said, voice steady. The hush fell so complete I heard the wine glasses echo. I didn't yell, I didn't taunt. I let the air wait. I hit play. On the screen, contract documents bearing my name, shares, ownership rights. Joanne gasped, then versions of the will, older drafts where I was listed as primary heir, later versions overwritten. The room stuttered. Joanne rose, eyes wide. "That must be forged," she cried. I raised my hand. "Which version is forged now?" I asked. Some gasped. Roger set his jaw. Mark looked torn. "I didn't come here to fight a war," I ended, "just to be seen." Joanne's face roiled. She accused me of betrayal, disloyalty. "You're trashing the family." She spat. She turned to Mark. "You knew and never stopped her." Some nearby guests murmured in her favor. Others bit their lips, uneasy. Mark intervened. "Enough, she has the right to speak." The tension snapped loud as broken glass. Instead of arguing, I shut the slideshow and closed my folder. I stepped forward, voice calm. "I asked for respect. I never asked you to love me." I turned to Joanne. "You made me invisible. Tonight I choose to be seen." I turned and walked away. The world behind me held its breath. In my suite later, I watched one final file. A watermark appeared. June 5th, Ministry Trust Office. Text below. "If you ever show this, look for the man behind the camera." My blood chilled. This was bigger than family. This was a war over things hidden in shadows. Guests were already whispering as I stepped into the lounge. The air felt thick. Every eye seemed to follow me. Some faces shifted away. Others held on too long, staring. Joanne entered next, regal and audacious, greeting allies with smiles that didn't reach her eyes, silent war drums pulsing in her posture. A staff member slid a phone into my hand, the viral video. Her toast, my recoil, caught on someone's camera. I stared at the 5-second loop over and over. Shock roared, then settled into cold determination. I shut the door, locked it. Behind me, the video played on mute. Comments streamed. Bride meltdown. She couldn't handle it, but also, he messed up marrying into this family. Screenshots circulated, my face frozen, heart hammered inside it. I typed and deleted a response until I typed. Yes, I froze. My dignity was stolen first. I hit send. Instantly the tone shifted. Messages of support popped up. People I barely knew wrote, "I see you." The humiliation turned into a spark. Downstairs, Joanne stood before guests, arms out in faux openness. "That video is edited," she announced, voice sweet, venom buried underneath. She pointed at Mark. He knew, and he didn't stop her. Murmurs darted through the crowd. Joanne leaned forward. Maybe she planted that video to stir up drama. A twist, casting me the villain. She wrapped it in the language of fragility. All I wanted was harmony. The hush crackled with tension. I called out for Mina, Marisol, my cousin. They joined me near the center. One by one they spoke. "We saw the cuts. We know she's lying." A few guests found courage. "Let her finish. This is real." An older family friend raised a hand. "We heard it too." Joanne's posture faltered just a fraction. I felt a quiet strength swelling in me. I walked into the center. I looked around at faces lit by soft chandelier light. I'm not here to shame anyone, but truth still deserves a voice. I hit play, raw footage, uncut, timestamps. My reaction unedited. I exposed the staging, the selective cut. Silence hung heavy. "You wanted a show? Here's nothing staged. This is me." A few stood, some cried, many looked away. A ping. My phone lit up. You don't know the half of it. A screenshot appeared, an internal family chat, planning the pig joke. Sender, insider. Cold realization ripped through me. This war is deeper than my pain. This thread is unraveling. The hall filled slowly. People moving as if under a low ceiling of thunder. Whispered talk rose and died when I stepped through the door. I had called this family meeting, but everyone knew it wasn't going to be routine. Joanne stood at the podium ready to take control, but I walked straight up to the center, calm but anchored. My eyes found Roger. I asked him without ceremony to bring forward the meeting papers. He hesitated, then complied. Murmurs rippled across the room. Mina and Marisol moved in quietly at my side. The shift in the air was almost visible, no more a bride being managed, but a woman in command. It's time, I said steady. Everything that's been hidden will be seen. I pressed play on the first file. The audio spilled out. Joanne's voice, Roger's voice, Gus's voice, talking about keeping Sarah in the dark, covering tracks, pushing her aside. The sound filled the ballroom like a low siren. Joanne's face drained. Roger stared at the floor. Gasps broke the silence. I didn't shout. I just let it play. This wasn't only her doing, I said, turning to the guests. He was plotting too. A tremor ran through the crowd. Some frowns turned toward Roger now. The control Joanne had fed on began to slip. For the first time, her smile looked like a mask about to crack. Next, I laid out the numbers. On the screen appeared ledgers and statements, wire transfers, shell companies, rerouted dividends, money meant for my share, quietly siphoned under Joanne's name. The green text of spreadsheets flickered across the faces in the room. A cousin muttered, "We trusted you." Joanne tried to insist it was for the family, but her voice shook. "Using funds intended for me?" I said, my voice a blade in a velvet sheath. "That's not legacy, that's theft." A woman in the back crossed her arms and nodded. Even Roger looked smaller now, shrinking inside his suit. I took a breath and shifted. This isn't about vengeance, this is about truth. I looked at the younger cousins clustered near the back. Don't let your worth be defined by someone else's narrative. You can inherit something better than this. Then to Joanne, "You taught me endurance. I'm done enduring. Now I create." The words hung in the stillness. Faces reflected, not gossip now, but thought. The hall for once went quiet in respect. A few guests moved forward. "I stand with Sarah," one said aloud. Joanne fell back into her chair, shoulders bent. Roger tried to speak, but the words were ash in his mouth. My husband stepped next to me, silent but there. In that moment, I realized the shift inside myself. I wasn't the wronged bride anymore. I was a person reclaiming her name, her standing, her future. Then the lights dimmed, screens flickered again, a single image appeared, a voice memo with a waveform dancing across the big screen. Joanne's voice instructing someone else to plant. The fat pig remark. And then the recording moved toward naming a third party, someone we all knew. Shock spread like a tide. People leaned forward, eyes wide. I felt my own breath catch as the voice began to speak the name. The ballroom was empty when I returned that morning. A few chairs pushed out of place. Torn name cards littered the table near the cake stand. Half sliced, untouched. I walked slowly, heels echoing off polished marble like punctuation. It was quiet now, a different kind of quiet. Not the silence of fear or tension, but of release. The storm had passed. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. A stream of messages, some from guests, apologies, support, a few admissions of guilt wrapped in niceties. I read them. I didn't need them, not anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't waiting for them to be better. I was done needing anything from them. The silence, it felt earned, like a breath that had been held too long and finally let go. The housekeeper found me later and said Joanne left that morning. No scene, no announcement. She packed light, she told me, said she wouldn't be back. In my room, I found a note on the dresser. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I see now that your strength was never the problem, it was mine. That was all, just one sentence. I read it twice, then folded it and placed it in a drawer. No tears, no triumph. Some people leave not to escape, but because they finally see what they've done. and that's its own ending. Over breakfast, Roger sat across from me, quiet, no theatrics. He stirred his coffee without sugar. I saw myself in her ruthlessness, he said. That's why I let it happen. I didn't speak. He wasn't here for forgiveness. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Your father's share, full control, it's yours again, should have been all along. That caught me. Not the papers. The acknowledgement. He looked up, face lined and tired. Your father trusted me. I didn't earn that. And for the first time I believed he meant it. I accepted the envelope, not for revenge, not for pride, but because it was time to stop living like I had to prove something. That chapter closed. Later that afternoon, my husband and I walked the path behind the estate, the same one where so much had begun. The garden was quieter now. No decorators, no champagne carts, just birds and wind. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, he said, his fingers interlacing with mine. We didn't talk about Joanne. We talked about who we wanted to be, about kids, about not letting the past teach us how to parent. He laughed. Can we agree not to call our kid a farm animal on their wedding day? I laughed, really laughed. That kind of laughter that shakes loose the last sharp edge of pain. Healing doesn't always come in a speech. Sometimes it's in a joke, a shared joke that doesn't need explanation. That evening I walked the halls of the estate again. Only this time it didn't feel borrowed, it didn't feel like theirs, it felt like mine. My footsteps didn't echo, they settled. I thought of something Eleanor Roosevelt once said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. That stayed with me. I hadn't won by yelling back. I won by not letting their bitterness grow inside me. I turned to the camera we'd left rolling in the study. To those watching, I said, you can write your ending. Don't let anyone else hold the pen. I didn't say goodbye. This wasn't goodbye. It wasn't just closure. It was a beginning. The past is still there, but it's no longer in charge. At sunset, I went into the dining room and placed a framed photo of my father on the side table. He was smiling in it, arms folded, shirt sleeves rolled up, eyes kind. I hope I made you proud, Dad, I whispered. The light from the window caught the frame just for a second, and it felt like something settled, like a quiet nod. I stepped outside. The air had shifted, crisp, not cold, just clear, and as I closed the door behind me, I smiled.